Thank you for clicking on again today. I have been praying for you, those of you who might be watching this video, and trust that the Lord would guide you and thank Him that He'd use me to convey His message. Please turn today to Jeremiah chapter 43. Jeremiah chapter 43. We left off last week. There was not very many Jews left in the land. The Babylonians had carried off most of the people captive into Babylon. The rest of the people were afraid because a Jew named Ishmael had killed Governor Gedaliah, the Jew that the Babylonians had put in charge before they left. They were afraid that the Babylonians would come back and hurt them. They had all kinds of fears of things, that they weren't safe. They didn't have walls, and they desired to go down to Egypt to do the big city life, to get as far away from Nebuchadnezzar as they could, from Babylon. And God says, don't do this thing. And I would say, of course, it's never a good idea for Jews to return to Egypt. Remember, right after God delivered them from Egypt, and they were slaves in Egypt, and He parted the Red Sea, and they were able to escape to the Sinai. Almost immediately, they said, "No, we don't have anything to eat. We need to go back to Egypt." And they were greatly admonished for doing that. It's still the same concept. Don't go back to Egypt. Don't try to return. Follow the Lord. Trust in the Lord. So, Jeremiah chapter 43, verse 1. Now it happened when Jeremiah had stopped speaking to all the people, all the words of the Lord their God, for which the Lord their God had sent them to them, all these words, that Azariah the son of Hoshea, Johanan the son of Kareah, and all the proud men spoke, saying to Jeremiah, "You speak falsely, for the Lord our God has not sent you to say, do not go to Egypt to dwell there." The Jews, the few Jews who were remaining in the land, they had, although they had made their own decision that they were going back to they were going back to Egypt, or that Jews would return to Egypt for safety in the big city. They tried to get Jeremiah to sign off on it. They tried to get God's stamp of approval, but you can't just twist God's arm like that. He's going to tell you the truth, and the truth is it's not a good idea for you to go back to Egypt. But now that Jeremiah told him that message, now this one of the prominent leaders, someone who had actually saved them from Ishmael, is calling Jeremiah a liar, essentially calling God a liar. Verse 3, but Baruch the son of Neriah has sent you against us to deliver us into the hand of the Chaldeans, that they may put us to death or carry us away captive to Babylon. Do you remember who Baruch the son of Neriah was? Well, he was the scribe. He was the one who, when Jeremiah would dictate words of the Lord to write down on scrolls, he's the one who would write it on the scrolls. He was also one who would read those scrolls in the temple. For some reason, Jeremiah had been banned from the temple, probably because he was such a controversial figure. So Baruch went and read those words in the temple. And now they're saying, it's not Baruch who works for you. It's you work for Baruch. And he's the mastermind behind this whole don't go to Egypt idea, which of course there's no evidence of that. It's completely false, completely a lie. And they're trying to blame others. Remember, like going all the way back to the Garden of Eden, what did Adam say? Well, the woman, Lord, who you gave me. And so now they're saying, well, the scribe who is saying these words from Jeremiah, the liar, who the Lord sent, essentially the blame is essentially being pointed back at the Lord, because these are the Lord's servants. Verse 4. So Johanan the son of Kareah, all the captains of the forces, and all the people would not obey the voice of the Lord to remain in the land of Judah. But Johanan the son of Kareah and all the captains of the forces took all the remnant of Judah who had returned to dwell in the land of Judah from all nations where they had been driven, men, women, children, the king's daughters, and every person whom Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had left with Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, and Jeremiah the prophet, and Baruch, the son of Neriah. So they took Baruch and Jeremiah with them. Notice the juxtaposition here between this Johanan, who seemed like he was a good guy. Turns out he's a bad guy as well. Just position between him and Nebuzaradan, the captain of Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Now he said to Jeremiah, "We're taking all these people to Babylon, but you have the option. You can come with us. We'll treat you good. You can stay here if you want to." He ultimately chose to stay there. Look at this. This guy is not giving Jeremiah his choice. He's just taking him with him. It's kind of like, all the Jews are going, so you got to go too. And you don't have a choice. We have swords. Kind of like Ishmael making the people go to Ammon. So, verse 7. So they went to the land of Egypt, for they did not obey the voice of the Lord, and they went as far as Tahpanhes. This is an interesting place as well. This is one of the ancient Egyptian cities that are studied in Egyptology, and this is an area that would today be right on the bank of the Suez Canal if the Suez Canal had been built back then. What's interesting is this city is in the region of Goshen. Goshen is the area where the Israelites had lived as slaves in Egypt. Not only are they going back to Egypt, they're going back to the same region where they were. That should have been a clue as well. At least go somewhere else. But apparently this was an area also that had foreign mercenaries. It seems like it had a very eclectic population, very international population. So maybe that's why they felt comfortable going there. But not a good idea. Not a good idea. In fact, it may actually be because the foreign fighters were in that area that this is going to be part of the problems that they're going to have when they're in Egypt. So, verse 8, then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah in Tahpanhes. People back then might have thought, well, gods are relegated to various areas. Well, apparently the Lord is not confined to Israel or Babylon. He can come into Egypt. He can go anywhere he wants. He's the Lord of all the universe, not just the Lord of Israel. And he sends his word to Jeremiah, who's in Tahpanhes. Says, verse 9, take large stones in your hand and hide them in the sight of the men of Judah, in the clay, in the brick courtyard, which is at the entrance to Pharaoh's house in Tahpanhes. I don't believe this is Pharaoh's main palace, but apparently he had a house in this area. Also around this time, there was civil war in Egypt. There were two pharaohs going on, which is going to lead to part of this issue that the Israelites are going to face here. And one of them has foreign mercenaries, so that could be what's going on here. It could be his house. Verse 10, say to them, thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will send and bring Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I will set his throne above these stones that I have hidden, and he will spread his royal pavilion over them. Whoa. You wanted to get away from Nebuchadnezzar? The Lord's going to send Nebuchadnezzar to Egypt. You went to Tophanes, which is in Goshen, the very place where your ancestors were slaves. Not a good idea. You went back there. You went back to the world. You went back to your flesh. You followed the desires of your heart. You took Jeremiah with you. And now God's going to send Nebuchadnezzar there too. And the critics will say, oh, no, this never happened. Nebuchadnezzar never conquered Egypt. Well, it doesn't say here that he's going to conquer all of Egypt. And we do have Babylonian records that say that he did come to Egypt and he did campaign there. And it would have been a perfect time. There's even thought that one of these pharaohs, or one of these rival pharaohs, actually invited him into the land to help him in his in this civil war. Whatever the case, we know that the Bible is correct, and we know that this happened. Nebuchadnezzar came to Egypt. He's going to sack this area, and the Jews in this area are now going to suffer much worse than if they had remained in Jerusalem. In fact, they wouldn't have suffered in Jerusalem at all. Nebuchadnezzar would have just walked right, would have just marched his army right past him, would have maybe said hi as he went along. Hey, do you need anything? Do you need any help? I heard about Gedaliah. Can I assist? Can I give you more Babylonian bodyguards? What do you need? But now he runs into him in Egypt, and it's just swords going all over the place. And sadly, a lot of these Jews who had escaped the sword in Jerusalem are now going to face the sword, the same Babylonian swords, in Egypt, where they think they're going to hide from it. So this is what God's doing through his prophet Jeremiah. He's laying these stones there right in their sight. Kind of like when we talked about Ezekiel, how he had dug a hole through his wall. And this showing what Zedekiah did when he broke through the wall of Jerusalem and fled. This is symbolizing what's going to happen, that Nebuchadnezzar is going to be there and he's going to send up some kind of a makeshift palace and a throne right there in Tophanes. Verse 11, when he comes, he shall strike the land of Egypt and deliver to death those appointed for death, and to captivity those appointed for captivity, and the sword those appointed for the sword. I will kindle a fire in the houses, the gods of Egypt, and he shall burn them and carry them away captive. And he shall array himself with the land of Egypt as a shepherd puts on his garment, and he shall go out there in peace. He shall also break the sacred pillars of Beth Shemesh. Some Bible translations are going to say Hierapolis. This is the main deity of Egypt, is the sun god. This is the temple for Ra, the sun god, that are in the land of Egypt, and the houses of the gods of the Egyptians he shall burn with fire. God continues to be a jealous God, and this is part of the desires of the hearts of the Jews who are going down there, is not just to go down there for safety's sake or for fear. They're also going down, they're going to start worshiping these Egyptian gods who they had already been familiar with from Jerusalem, where everything was going, because of poor leadership from the various kings. The Jews have a history in Egypt. That main history is as slaves, but there's a history since then. If you go to Egypt today, you'll see synagogues there, big, beautiful synagogues that they're actually restoring them, or the state of Egypt is restoring them, because there's not any Jews there to restore them. It might be about 3 Jewish people still living in Egypt. And we don't even know if they can trace their time all the way back to Jeremiah. With the Jews who went to Babylon, they prospered. They expanded. When the Persian society took over the Babylonian society, the Jews prospered in people like Queen Esther. And they would go on to settle in places like Russia and Germany and Europe, and move to the United States and become wealthy and Nobel Peace Prize winners. Those are pretty much all Jews who are coming out of Babylon. But the ones who are coming out of Egypt, there's nothing. Maybe a few synagogues. there's really nothing to show for it. History has shown that Jeremiah's prophecy was right once again. God bless you all.